My name is Ryan Cole. I'm 38, and I used to believe I had the perfect life. A stable job, a beautiful wife named Elena, and a quiet suburban home in Austin, Texas, where I thought happiness was just routine. But as I sit here now, retelling everything that happened, I realized my so-called perfect life was a carefully built illusion, one that shattered the day I found out the truth. It started innocently, as these things often do. A few months ago, I began noticing small changes in Elena's behavior. At first, I brushed them off. I had been working long hours managing construction projects, sometimes pulling 16-hour shifts, and I figured maybe she was just feeling neglected. She had started going to the gym more often, getting her hair done, and wearing perfume even when she said she was just running errands. I told myself, Ryan, don't be paranoid. But paranoia has a funny way of becoming intuition once the pieces start to fit. One evening, after dinner, Elena sat beside me on the couch. Her phone buzzed, and she flinched like she'd been burned. I wasn't even looking at her screen, but she locked her phone instantly. I laughed it off, teasing her. "Who's messaging you this late?" She smiled too quickly and said, "Just Maria from work." But I noticed something. Maria's messages never made her smile like that before. Over the following weeks, the distance grew. She avoided eye contact when I spoke. She started sleeping with her phone under her pillow. Her laughter changed. It sounded guilty, almost rehearsed. And then came the first real sign. I came home early one Friday. The plan was to surprise her with dinner, since it had been a rough week for both of us. As I pulled into the driveway, I noticed a car parked a few houses down. A sleek black sedan I didn't recognize. I thought maybe it belonged to a neighbor's guest. When I walked inside, the house was quiet. Too quiet. Her purse was by the door, her jacket on the chair, but she wasn't home. I called her phone. It rang twice before going to voicemail. A strange unease settled in my stomach. Then I saw something on the kitchen counter. 2 wine glasses, one still half full. My first instinct was to deny it. Maybe she'd had a friend over. Maybe I was overreacting. But the lipstick mark on the other glass wasn't hers. That night, she came home around 10, smelling faintly of whiskey and a cologne I didn't recognize. She acted normal, talking about work, complaining about her boss. I wanted to scream, to ask her where she'd been, but something in me decided to wait. I needed proof. The next morning, I drove to a small electronics store and bought 2 hidden cameras, one for the living room, one for the bedroom. I told myself it was insane, but deep down, I already knew. Days turned into weeks. I tried to act normal while the cameras recorded everything. I worked, smiled, laughed, and even made love to a woman I was beginning to suspect didn't love me anymore. Then, on a Tuesday afternoon, everything changed. I was reviewing footage from the living room while at work, half expecting nothing, when I saw it. Elena opening the front door in the middle of the day, smiling in a way I hadn't seen in months, and right behind her walked in a man. Tall, broad-shouldered, familiar. It took me a few seconds to recognize him, but when I did, I felt my world collapse. It was Aaron, my best friend since college. They kissed in the doorway, laughing like teenagers. The same lips that kissed me goodnight, now on someone I trusted more than anyone else in the world. I paused the footage, replayed it, hoping I was imagining it, but no, there it was. Undeniable, raw betrayal. My heart pounded so hard I could barely breathe. It wasn't just her cheating. It was who she cheated with. The man who had been the best man at our wedding. The one who would help me build my company. For hours, I sat there watching the footage on loop, my stomach turning. Every laugh, every touch, every whisper they shared, like a knife twisting deeper each time. I didn't confront them immediately. Instead, I started documenting everything. Every time Aaron visited, every text Elena sent when she thought I wasn't watching, I cloned her phone, installed a tracker on her car, and kept quiet. I wanted her lies to bury themselves in time. but betrayal has a way of escalating. One Saturday, Elena told me she was going to visit her sister in Dallas for the weekend. I nodded, pretending to believe her. I kissed her goodbye, told her to drive safe, and watched as she left. An hour later, I checked the tracker. She wasn't heading north toward Dallas. She was driving south toward San Antonio. I followed her. It was nearly midnight when I saw her car parked outside a small Airbnb on the edge of town. I waited in the shadows, watching as Aaron stepped out of his car and wrapped his arms around her. They kissed under the porch light, like something out of a romance movie. I took photos, dozens of them, each one cutting deeper than the last. I wanted to burst in, to drag them both into the street and demand answers, but I didn't. Instead, I drove home in silence, my hands gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. The next morning, she came back home with a smile. She kissed my cheek, said she missed me, and made breakfast like nothing had happened. I sat there watching her cook, listening to her hum softly, realizing how masterfully she'd been living a double life. For days, I planned what to do next. Divorce wasn't enough. She had destroyed our marriage, humiliated me, and betrayed my trust in the worst way possible. I wanted her to feel the kind of pain she had given me, but I wasn't going to lose control. I wanted justice, not chaos. That's when I reached out to Mark Harris, a private investigator I'd met through work. I gave him the footage, the photos, the tracker data. I need everything, I told him. Every secret, every lie. Within a week, Mark had built a full dossier. Turns out, Aaron had been embezzling money from one of our joint business accounts. Small amounts, spread out over time, hard to trace. Elena had known. She'd helped him cover it up. The betrayal wasn't just emotional. It was financial, calculated. I felt sick. My wife and my best friend weren't just sleeping together. They were conspiring behind my back.
That's when I realized I had the upper hand. I met with my attorney, Sarah Lee, a tough-as-nails divorce specialist. We worked quietly, strategically. Every asset, every joint account, every legal document shifted into my control. I filed for divorce under infidelity grounds, but I didn't serve her right away. I wanted her to walk into it unsuspecting. Meanwhile, I acted like the same loving husband she thought she was fooling. I took her out to dinner, surprised her with flowers, and even planned a weekend getaway for our anniversary. She smiled, thinking she still had me wrapped around her finger. But that weekend wasn't a getaway. It was the stage for her downfall. We went to a small cabin outside the city. She thought it was romantic. I knew it was poetic justice. The same place we'd gone for our honeymoon, years ago. I had invited Aaron to join us the next day under the pretense of discussing a new business proposal. When the three of us sat together that afternoon, the tension was thick. Elena laughed nervously. Aaron kept avoiding eye contact. I poured us drinks and said casually, "You know, it's funny how things come full circle." Aaron smiled weakly. "What do you mean?" I reached into my bag, pulled out a tablet, and pressed play. The footage appeared on the screen. Elena and Aaron, in my house, kissing, touching, laughing. Elena's face went pale. Aaron froze. The room filled with the sound of their betrayal echoing back at them. I let it play for a full minute before turning it off. Silence. "Do you have anything you'd like to say?" I asked calmly. Elena's lip trembled. "Ryan, please, save it," I cut her off. "I already filed for divorce. The papers are ready. You'll be getting served tomorrow." Aaron stood trying to talk, but I stopped him cold. "Sit down," I said sharply. "You stole from me. Both of you did. Every transfer, every dollar, it's all documented. I've already sent everything to my lawyer and the board." He sat back down, his face ashen. I looked at them both and said quietly, "You didn't just betray me. You destroyed yourselves." That night, I drove home alone. The silence in the car was suffocating, but for the first time in months, it felt like my silence, not hers. The next morning, Elena was served with divorce papers. Aaron was removed from the company and faced charges for embezzlement. My attorney handled everything swiftly, efficiently, while I focused on rebuilding what they tried to destroy. But the emotional wreckage remained. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I just existed, hollow and exhausted. Nights were the hardest. The ghost of what I thought my life was haunted me in the dark. Then, a few weeks later, something unexpected happened. I ran into Lena, one of Elena's old co-workers at a cafe downtown. She looked uncomfortable at first, but then said quietly, "Ryan, I'm sorry for everything you went through. You deserve to know something." She told me that Elena and Aaron had been together for almost 3 years, long before I ever suspected anything. 3 years of lies, 3 years of deception, all while she looked me in the eye every day and said, "I love you." That night, I sat on my porch, whiskey in hand, watching the city lights blur. I realized that the person I had loved didn't exist. She was a mask, a performance built on convenience and greed. And as painful as it was, that realization set me free. A month after I filed for divorce, the house felt like a museum of lies. Every photo, every memory, every quiet Sunday morning coffee, it all felt tainted. I couldn't stand being in the same space where Elena's laughter once filled the rooms, knowing that it had all been an act.
I sold the house. I didn't even pack everything. I left most of the furniture behind, took only my tools, my father's old watch, and a few boxes of clothes. I wanted nothing that carried her fingerprints. People think revenge is about destruction, but that's not true. Revenge is about rebirth, about taking control back from the people who tried to make you small. Elena called me dozens of times after she got served. I ignored most of them. When I finally answered, her voice was shaky. "Ryan, please, can we talk? I made a mistake. I'm sorry." Her words were the same ones I used to dream of hearing during those sleepless nights before I caught her. But now they felt empty, like echoes bouncing off walls that no longer existed. "You didn't make a mistake," I said coldly. "You made a choice." She started crying. I hung up. By then, my attorney, Sarah, had already finalized most of the settlement. Thanks to the evidence I'd collected, the judge ruled overwhelmingly in my favor. I got the house proceeds, the savings, and full control of my business. Elena got nothing but the clothes she came with, and her guilt. Aaron's downfall was even worse. The company pressed full charges. He lost everything: his job, his reputation, his marriage. His wife Megan called me one evening after hearing the news. "I can't believe it," she whispered. "He swore you were like a brother to him." I didn't know what to say, so I simply told her the truth. Brothers don't stab each other in the back. After that, I tried to move on, but the quiet was unbearable. The nights were long, the memories loud. Every shadow reminded me of them. I threw myself into work, taking contracts out of state, spending weeks on construction sites where nobody knew my story. But pain has a way of catching up to you. One evening, after a 16-hour shift in Phoenix, I got a call from my mother. She said Elena had been trying to reach me again. Apparently, she wanted to meet for closure. I laughed bitterly. Closure? The only thing she ever closed was her heart. Still, a part of me, maybe the part that still needed answers, agreed to meet her. We met at a quiet cafe downtown. She looked different, thinner, tired. The kind of tired that doesn't come from lack of sleep, but from regret. "Ryan, you look good." I didn't reply. I just stared at her, waiting for whatever performance she'd rehearsed this time. "I know you don't owe me anything," she continued, "but I wanted to tell you that I'm sorry, truly sorry. I was lost. Aaron made me feel seen when we were struggling, and I interrupted. "Don't insult both of us by trying to romanticize betrayal." Tears welled in her eyes. "You were always so calm, even now. I thought you'd hate me forever." I leaned forward. "I don't hate you, Elena. You don't matter enough for that anymore." That was the last time I ever saw her. Over the following months, life began to feel lighter. I started traveling more, Denver, Nashville, Seattle, taking on new projects, meeting new people. Each place gave me a little more distance from the man I used to be. Then, something unexpected happened again. During a renovation job in Portland, I met Natalie. She was an architect, smart, confident, funny in a quiet way. At first, I didn't want to get close. I'd built walls so high even sunlight barely reached inside. But Natalie had this way of making me forget why I built them in the first place. She didn't ask about my past. She just listened when I needed to talk and gave me space when I didn't. Slowly, I began to trust again. Not just her, but myself. It wasn't love at first sight. It was something better. Peace. One evening, we were sitting on a rooftop watching the city lights, and she asked me, "Do you ever regret what happened?"
I thought for a while before answering. "No," I said finally. "I regret trusting the wrong people, but I don't regret learning who they really were." She smiled. "That's how healing sounds." For the first time in years, I realized she was right. Healing doesn't look like forgetting. It looks like understanding that what broke you no longer controls you. But the story didn't end there. About a year later, I received an envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a letter written in shaky handwriting. It was from Aaron. "Ryan, I know you'll probably never forgive me, but I needed to say this. You were the best friend I ever had. What I did to you was unforgivable, and I've paid for it every day since. I lost my family, my career, and most of all, my self-respect. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry, not because I got caught, but because I destroyed something real. I hope you found peace. I'm trying to find mine." I folded the letter carefully and put it away in a drawer. I didn't feel satisfaction or even anger, just closure. The real kind this time. 2 years passed. My business flourished again, stronger than ever. I opened a second branch in Denver with Natalie as lead architect. We'd been dating for over a year by then, and she was the first person who made me believe in honesty again. Sometimes at night, I'd look back at who I used to be, the man who doubted himself, who ignored the signs, who loved too blindly. That version of me was gone, but I didn't hate him. He had to exist for me to become this version. People often asked me if I ever missed Elena. The truth? No. What I missed was the version of myself that believed in her, the version that thought love was enough to keep someone faithful. Love isn't blind trust. It's about shared respect. Once that's gone, everything else is just noise. Months later, I attended a charity gala in Austin. It was my first time back in the city since everything happened. The event was hosted at a hotel downtown. Ironically, the same one where I had once caught glimpses of Aaron's car years ago. I almost didn't recognize her when I saw her. Elena. She was standing near the exit, holding a tray of drinks, working. Her once perfect hair was shorter now, her face tired. She looked up, and our eyes met. Time froze. For a second, I saw the shock in her eyes, followed by shame. She put down the tray and whispered, "Ryan." I didn't say a word. I just nodded slightly, a quiet acknowledgement of the ghost she'd become in my life. Then I turned
and walked away. That moment wasn't revenge. It was liberation. Life went on, and it was good. A few months later, Natalie and I bought a small cabin near the mountains, a peaceful place surrounded by pine trees and silence. Sometimes on quiet mornings, I'd sit outside with a cup of coffee, watching the sun rise through the mist, and think about everything that had led me there. The betrayal, the rage, the loss. It had all been part of something bigger, the storm that cleared the path for me to rebuild. If you asked me now what the hardest part was, I wouldn't say it was discovering the affair or losing everything I thought I had. The hardest part was learning how to trust myself again. Because when someone betrays you, they don't just steal your love, they steal your certainty. But here's the truth I learned the hard way. You can always rebuild certainty. You just have to start from the ashes and choose who you'll become next. A year later, on our wedding day, as Natalie walked down the aisle, I caught myself smiling in a way I hadn't in years. Not the forced smile I used to wear in photos with Elena, but the kind that comes from knowing you've survived hell and still found your way home. When she reached me, she whispered, "You ready?" I nodded, more than ever. And in that moment, I realized my story wasn't about betrayal anymore. It was about rebirth. I once thought Elena and Aaron destroyed my life, but now I see they freed me from it. Because sometimes the worst people you meet are the ones who push you toward the best version of yourself.